The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Damn good coffee and hot.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
Oh, I love those sound effects. You can feel those hits. Good morning, folks. Well, is it a good morning? Not if you're still breathing the crap from Canada that's flowing down. I'm still waiting for summer, and I'm good to talk, and I hope you are. All right, guys, knock it off. Oh, that band. Anyway, good morning, folks. It is Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Hope you're having a wonderful morning wherever you are. Here in New York, we're still in a bit of a haze of weird kind of smoky chemical smell. You know, it's a wildfire that's burning up in Canada. I don't know why it would smell chemical, but it does. It smells like chemicals. It smells like I don't know, like a bad one of those fake logs that you get to burn in the fireplace. You just get that really weird chemical kind of smell with it. Anyway, and still waiting for summer. You know, interesting enough, the flat earth thing in there. Last night, I saw Anthony Cumia, my arch enemy, who doesn't even really know I exist, arguing with people about flat earth, but in such a lame way that it's no wonder that the flat earth people are growing in numbers. If they really are growing in numbers. I don't know that that's definitely true. I think it's probably leveled off to like a certain level of idiocy. But if they are indeed growing in numbers, it would be no wonder, because the people who are presenting the globe side of it are the stupidest people in the world. They have no idea about why they believe we live on a globe. It's just because teacher told them so. And when struggling to debate the idiots of the flat earth movement, they come up really weak and lame. Now, somebody presented him with a map of flat earth with the wall, you know, the Antarctic seawall around the whole thing. And he was talking about, well, it takes, you know, we know how long it takes to circumnavigate the globe. And if you were going to drive around or fly around the Antarctic seawall, it would take much longer than that. So there's your argument. Hello, you can't use circumnavigate the globe when arguing with flat earth people. You have to start from very simple terms. They have a map that doesn't have scale on it. You know, scale, when you go to a map and you see 1 inch equals how many miles, that's called scale. And the map they present, the lame map they present, is ridiculous without any scale at all. You can't tell what a mile is. You can't tell, you know, you have no idea the length of things. So the southern hemisphere is we know the distances between places, and if we can get them to commit to scale, we can prove, first of all, that that map is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense at all because we know the distances, and if you break it out into their whatever, it won't be inconsistent with the facts that we know. That's where you start with them. You don't start about circumnavigating a globe because they don't believe in a globe. It's like the the argument about proving the existence of God, but you have to go to the Bible. Well, if you already believe in the Bible, you don't need to be proven. The existence of God doesn't need to be proven to you. You're already a believer. Hello. It's just so frustrating. Anyway, so I'm, I caught a little bit of that. It was slightly amusing for a little while, and I did not chime in because I don't want to. I don't. I don't want to get caught in that web of flat Earth ridiculousness anymore. Other thing, today we are going to have an author, Ian O'Connor, who has written a book about the Kennedy assassination, which I'm still obsessed with, and I think it is the root of all dumb conspiracies that followed. And I'm not saying that the idea that Lee Oswald. It's funny how every time there's one of these guys who was a bad guy, they want to put in the middle name. He always went by Lee Oswald, but it's the minute he killed Kennedy or shot or as part of a conspiracy to kill Kennedy and was pinned as the guy, they had to put a middle name in there. And it's true with all these guys. Thomas, I think Anthony Valvey. That name ring a bell to most people? Probably not. I'm gonna ask Ian if he knows about that guy. And he's got to be with us. I got to get him in and out, and he's waiting in the green room right now. I got to get him in and out pretty quick, according to his publicist, Jackie Martling. Jackie the Joke Man Martling will be following. He'll be with us at 9:30. I'm going to take a really quick break and tell you about Koa Coffee and be back and introduce you to Ian, and we'll talk about his book called The Pegasus Directive. Excuse me, I'm still a little sleepy here. The Pegasus Directive, and we'll talk to him in just 1 minute. Stay with us. Get yourself some Koa Coffee, and we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by Koa Coffee. If you are a coffee connoisseur and want to experience the best coffee Hawaii has to offer, no blends, no compromise, try the true taste of aloha. Koa Coffee produces premium Hawaiian coffee, hand-picked, expertly roasted, and delivered from Hawaii to your door with aloha. From award-winning 100% Kona coffee grown on the slopes of the Mauna Loa volcano to the unique mocha beans of Maui, they strive to provide their loyal customers with the best quality and freshness. Since 1997, Koa Coffee has been known far and wide as a product of utmost quality, and their awards prove it. Koa Coffee was featured in Forbes' Top 10 Coffees of the World. This is the coffee Forbes called the best coffee in America. Find out what it's all about. Go to minddogtv.com/coffee. Yeah. Get yourself some good Koa coffee, and you'll love it, like I love it.
You're listening to Coffee with a Dog on Live 365, Mind Dog Radio.
Okie dokie. Was it last night? Night before last. I caught something online somewhere. It is a new piece, but it's a long piece by Oliver Stone, the original conspiracy theorist about the JFK assassination. And he's got a new piece out, and I don't know what it's called. Like reliving it or re-examining. But it very informative, far more fact-based and interesting, far more interesting than the actual movie JFK that he put out. And it's got some really good information in there. My guest today, and this is the thing that puzzles me. Why can't we let this go? Will we ever let this go? Will we ever really know the truth? Maybe not. My guest today has written a book about. It's a fictional book, but with a lot of historical accuracy. It's called The Pegasus Directive. Ian O'Connor is a retired U.S. Air Force colonel and a recognized expert in the field of national security management. This background serves him well as a foundation for his novels. He's about to release this new book. I think it's probably released already. If I have a picture of it, it's probably released already. On the Jack Kennedy assassination, it's fiction, but full of historical accuracy. The Pegasus Directive focuses on who really killed President John F. Kennedy and all the fiendish machinations behind the assassination. Ladies and gentlemen, please open your ears, open your minds, and help me welcome in Colonel Ian O'Connor.
Well, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have to start by saying I'm looking out at 80-degree weather, beautiful, clear, no haze coming down from Canada. Life is good.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Well, hopefully we'll get the haze to blow away today, and summer will finally start here. I've been waiting for summer. It just doesn't happen. It's like a bad bowel movement.
No comment.
Anyway, the book, The Pegasus Directive. Now it's full of historical accuracy, but it's fiction. And the problem I've always had with historical fiction is I find it really difficult to know where the lines are drawn between what's fictional and what's true. Do you make that clear in the novel?
I do mix it up. I make people think. This has been a story, as you know, that's been festering for 60 years. This is the 60th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. And remarkably, over 70% of the world's population still doesn't know the answer. It's a remarkable fact.
Do you, I hate to put you on the spot already, do you believe you actually know who killed Kennedy?
I speculate. And my speculation goes back many years when I was a young Air Force intelligence officer, 1972, 1974, where I originally approached this story. I sent it to the various people in New York. They held on to it for several months, sent it back and said, because of the political climate at the time, we were in the midst of Watergate. A lot of the world players were still alive. And they said, this is a story we don't want to touch at this time. Wow. The years went by. I dusted it off. My writing was a heck of a lot better. The story improved. And with the 60th anniversary coming up, I said, you know what? It's time to present a historical, fictional thriller to make people think that maybe we don't really know who killed JFK, but Mr. O'Connor's theory is as good or better than anything we've heard so far.
I don't. I think it's for sure we don't really know. But I do. I've gone back and forth on this. I do think Lee Oswald played a major role, and I do think he was at least one of the gunmen.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
He was set up as a patsy. He was never meant to shoot Kennedy. He was told, don't shoot Kennedy. Fire 3 shots in the air. We have assassins that will do the job. The man didn't listen, and history shows us what happened to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Wow. Don't give away the whole book.
I will not.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard that. So nothing surprises me. Now, I mentioned before I introduced you, I think his name Thomas Andrew Valvey or Anthony Valvey. Does that name ring a bell?
Is this the Canadian author?
It was the guy this was a guy who was in Chicago. Another Lee Harvey, a Marine who was a sharpshooter who was in Chicago a week before, supposedly sent by the CIA to kill Kennedy, and that because they got wind of it and they canceled that trip to Chicago. But it always.
I do remember that now. Yes, I do.
Yeah. and the similarities between him and Oswald were remarkable in that, you know, they wanted him to go to Russia and fake the defection and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, wow, this is it. At that point, it starts to feel like the CIA was definitely involved. Now, without giving away too much in the book, do you go there as far as who were the brain power behind all this?
I do not. I do not for a second go to the CIA. I don't go to the DIA. I don't go to the Chicago mob. I don't go to Fidel Castro. I don't go to the New Orleans mob. No, these are speculations that ran rampant for years and years and years. And if you'll remember, just a couple of nights ago, Robert F. Kennedy, who's now running for president, he insists that his uncle and his father were killed by the CIA.
Right. Yeah.
That's major. I personally do not believe that. Did they have reason to kill him? Yes. The Kennedys turned against the mob after the father got JFK elected in 1960. And so, yeah, there was some very bad blood there. Do I think the CIA was involved? No.
I'll be honest with you. There is an emotional part of me that does not want the CIA to be involved, only because it terrifies me to the core that, and it's probably true that at least in this sense that the CIA is not under the control of anyone. They run amok. They run their own game, and they are not even accountable to the president of the United States. That scares me that they can, so I have an emotional reason not to want to believe that the CIA was involved, if that makes any sense. So,
and I agree. There was a lot of bad blood in 1960, 61, 62 against Allen Dulles and John Foster Dulles. They were Eisenhower men. And Kennedy didn't trust them. He did not trust the CIA.
Right.
But do I think they went as far as to murder the president? Absolutely not.
Do you think
that's where my thriller comes in? I give you the alternative as to who probably was the mastermind.
Okay. Do you think that we will ever really know, or will it remain secret for eternity?
Well, I'm sure hoping that my book is going to make people stop and say, you know what? Over the past 60 years, this is the best explanation we've ever had as to what happened that day in Dallas in 1963.
Well, I look forward to reading the book. I look forward to reading the book. The problem, and I'll come back to this. I know I alluded to this as a start, but the problem with people like me is I read historical fiction, and then I assume that I know. When I can't tell the fiction part from the nonfiction part, and I will make cases based on what I read and think I'm an expert in it, and then make a fool of myself in an argument with somebody because I believe every word that I forget that it's partly fiction.
Let me give you a little bit of food for thought from the book. Okay. I'm going to tease you. On November the 22nd this year marks the 60th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. And still, these many years later, the three most important questions still being asked is, who killed President John F. Kennedy? How was it accomplished? And why was he killed? The answers came in May 1972 from a Soviet spy master seeking sanctuary at the Canadian embassy in Rome. He told the ambassador at the time he wished to defect to the United States in exchange for perishable information he deemed critical to America's continued well-being. There was just one caveat. He would only surrender to an American agent he knew solely by the code name Pegasus. What he revealed to Pegasus in trade for asylum was deemed so explosive by President Nixon that it has remained among the world's most closely guarded secrets until now. Wow. That's the teaser.
Okay. Is Pegasus a real person?
Pegasus is an amalgamation of a lot of very real intelligence officers, yes.
Very cool, man. I look forward to reading the book. Now, from a business perspective, I just curious about this. It seems like it probably would be a much better marketing move. And I'm not criticizing your decision on this, but it seems like it would sell the book a lot better if it came out like October. You know what I mean, right?
Believe me, the book is going to be published on the 21st, and there's going to be a second push in October and November to coincide with the assassination.
I look
Hopefully
forward to it,
with interviews with ABC, NBC, CBS, with blogs. It's being set up by a professional communications firm to do just that.
Very cool. I look forward to it. I'm going to show the book one more time before we let you go. I know I have to let you go pretty quick.
And I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The book is called The Pegasus Directive. Beautiful, beautiful cover there.
Isn't it wonderful? It
yeah.
says a picture's worth 1,000 words, and there's your 1,000 words.
Yeah. You know, I did a music video based on the Kennedy assassination 40 years ago now. And that a very similar image that starts the music video. So I naturally love that. Listen, I wish you great success with this book. I hope, you know, I hope it does make people think and keeps us, you know, interested in it, because I feel like, you know, we deserve to know the truth.
It's
right?
a story that needs to be told.
Right. Well, thank you very much, and good luck. And
likewise, thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Bye for now. Going more in the middle of saying goodbye. Anyway, Ian A. O'Connor, and the book is called The Pegasus Directive. The link is in the description to his website, at the official website, where you can find out about all his books. He's got one about time travel, and if you know me, and if you're familiar with my obsession with time travel, that's a book that I really want to get into as well. But I look forward to getting this book, Pegasus Directive. Again, you know, I'm going to look up this Thomas Valvey guy for you, because, and I want to be clear, because you know what, I was not like taking notes during this thing. No, maybe it's not Valvey. Or maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Thomas. I thought it was Thomas. You know what, Thomas Valvey. Maybe if I put in Kennedy, maybe I have it wrong. Maybe I have the name slightly wrong. Thomas Kennedy, Michigan. Nah. I'm gonna have to rewatch the whole documentary, folks, just to, or at least get to that part. But it was a name I had not been familiar with before. Now, Valvey, come on. I'm pretty sure Valvey and Thomas is right. There was an A, maybe it's two. Former agent Kennedy assassination thwarted in Chicago. Here it is. Thomas Anthony Valvey. Vallvee. Oh, come on, you dopey ads on this internet thing. November 21st, 2007, President Kennedy was murdered. No, what? That's wrong. President Kennedy was murdered on November 22nd, 1963. So this article is from 2007. Lee Harvey Oswald would never have had the chance to kill Kennedy in Dallas had an assassination plot in Chicago succeeded 3 weeks earlier. The plot that had been mentioned over the years. Now, mentioned over the years by who? I've never heard of it before. Have you? Kennedy was due to arrive in Chicago the morning of Saturday, November 2nd, to attend an Army Air Force football game at Soldier Field and ride in a parade. Now, they had Valvey in a building that looked, he started working there 6 weeks earlier, in a building that looked almost exactly like the Texas Book Depository, and they had him in a 6th floor window. What are the odds of that? Ex-Marine sharpshooter gets a job just like Oswald did 6 weeks before the parade, supposed parade, in a building that was right on the parade route and has a 6th floor window at lunchtime. What, you know, the odds, and you know, the odds of Oswald having that spot on the parade route and a break at lunchtime just as Kennedy was going to be coming past his window. That feels like probably a little more than just coincidence, right? Anyway, So this Thomas Valvey guy. Although police were preparing the line for the motorcade route, Secret Service officials in Chicago were deeply troubled about the visit because of two secret threats. Now, somebody had spilled the beans on this, and supposedly, and alerted the Secret Service. It's Valley. I'm sorry, not Valvey. Valley, Vallee, which is why I couldn't find it in my original search. Right-wing radical and Kennedy denouncer. Right-wing radical. That's not what I heard about him anyway. I thought he was a Marine who had been talking about defecting to Russia. What Stone has in his documentary. He had arranged to be off for work for JFK's visit. Valley, an expert marksman, was arrested with an M1 rifle, a handgun, and 3,000 rounds of ammo, but there was the phone call to federal agents from a motel manager concerning what she saw in the room rented by two Cuban nationals. This is all just cloudy, muddying the waters. Will we ever know? I don't know. Jackie was Jackie the Joke Man, who's going to be with us in a short bit. He was a young man at the time. I'm going to see what his thoughts on this are. Now, I'm sure he probably hasn't put in a lot of deep thought. He's not obsessed with it like Oliver Stone is. But this is the seed of all the conspiracy theorists that exist today and that we are dealing with in America today, because we don't know the truth, and the feeling that our own government is involved in this by so many people and keeping the truth from us leads to moon landings being faked, ideas, and all this kind of stuff. JFK assassination conspiracy theories. Well, that's a whole Wikipedia page. We don't want. Documents confirm the arrest of a suspect in plot to kill JFK. And this is about Valley. Thomas Valley. I don't know why I thought it was Valvey. I must have been half asleep when I was watching this thing. Thomas Arthur Valley was arrested by Chicago police on November 2nd, 1963, after notification by Secret Service. What is it? Jackie's just texting me. What the hell is he saying now? Okay. He's just giving me some things he's going to want to put. Well, where are you, Jack? Come on. Anyway, fascinating stuff. I can't wait to read the book. I really can't wait to read the book. Now, Ian O'Connor seems to think that he knows the answer here. He's, and not involving the CIA, or it seemed to indicate that he didn't think it was CIA had anything to do with it. But hey, maybe he's just trying to, not get himself killed. I don't know. At this point, I'd be willing to roll the dice. Most of those guys who were in the CIA in 1963 are probably dead. You would think. Listen, I'm almost dead, and I was a kid. I was 4 years old in 1963. I'm almost dead. So I would think anybody working for the CIA, at least at any significant level, they'd probably be in their 90s at least now. Probably dead. Anyway, the book is called The Pegasus Directive, and it will be out on the 21st of June. You can go to the website. The link is in the description. I'm going to take that. IanO'Connor.com. It's pretty simple. You'll know how to get there. Anyway, Jackie is in the back now. I'm gonna make him wait just 1 second while I play another commercial, and then we'll be right back while I take this this banner out.
Over 2 million guitar players worldwide learn, practice, and play with TrueFight. Our learning tools and massive library of video lessons will ignite your technical skills, harmonic knowledge, rhythm playing, and soloing chops. TrueFire's educators are the best in the biz, from Grammy Award winners to world-renowned artists. You'll have access to an unparalleled faculty of over 300 top-notch blues, rock, jazz, country, fingerstyle, and acoustic guitar educators. Using our desktop and mobile apps, you'll work with TrueFire's multi-angle video lessons on any device, anytime, anywhere. Integrated learning tools such as video synced tab and notation, slow-mo, looping, practice jam tracks, and many more handy controls accelerate your learning experience. TrueFire's style-specific learning paths guide you every step of the way. Use our assessment tools to find your starting point, then follow our lesson recommendations and track your progress as you
I want to
work
learn
through
how to
a
play
personalized
guitar.
TrueFire study plan. Progress faster with private one-on-one instruction, group lessons, multi-track video jams, live streams, song lessons, student forums, TrueFire's Riff magazine, premium jam tracks, and much, much more. With thousands of 5-star ratings and reviews from amateur and pro players alike, you'll find yourself in good company with the world's most comprehensive guitar learning platform. Grab your guitar and ignite your musicality. Sign up free for an all-access trial today.
Yeah. I learned to play on TrueFire. Ian's saying fucking idiots when trying to learn how to play guitar. What do you mean by that, Ian? Look at that little yellow icon on Twitch. I hate the fact that we're not on YouTube this week. It's killing me. And here's the thing. They banned me for spreading misinformation about COVID because of that crazy fucking lady, Patricia Corey. And she can sue me for saying that. She's fucking crazy. But for all the craziness that she said on the show I had her on, I pushed back on all the ridiculous, stupid, nonsense ideas that she came up with. And then I see Rogan and Theo Von yesterday on YouTube talking about the shit with no pushback, saying the same kind of shit that she's saying. YouTube's got no problem with that. You know why? Because Rogan makes them $11 million a day, and I make them 11 cents a week. That's why. It had nothing to do with principles, nothing to do with spreading misinformation. It's like, fuck that guy who's only, and we'll make an example out of the guy who makes 11 cents a week. I make more than 11 cents a week. Sometimes 12, sometimes 13. Anyway, it's just really frustrating because it makes it hard for the audience to find us. We are on Gov Network YouTube channel, but I don't know how many people are there, and they can't participate in the chat because they're not on my channel. And my channel is frozen for a week. Well, 5 more days. Anyway, I'll stop bitching about that. Jackie Harvey Oswald is suspected to be the killer of John F. Kennedy, and he's here with us now. It's funny how all these serial killers, again, all get a middle name. He was Lee Oswald his entire life. The minute he is suspected of shooting Kennedy, they got to throw in the middle name. And this Thomas Valley guy, all of a sudden gets arrested for plotting to kill Kennedy, and he becomes Thomas Arthur Valley. It's like, the minute you become a crazy killer, they got to give you a middle name. So Jackie Harvey Oswald is with us now. Welcome, Mr. Oswald. I mean,
my name is John Coger Martling.
Were you? We hear that you wanted to shoot the president.
No, I actually was such a fan. I was actually in 7th grade, and I was part of the President's Council for Youth Fitness, and we did push-ups and chin-ups every day, and the whole tenor of the country was unbelievable. Everybody was so in love with that guy, and I came from a long line of Republicans, and Nassau County was like the 49th state when it came to Republicans, but he was just so revered, and talk about the shot heard around the world. It really is true that everybody knows exactly not where they were, but what they were doing. I can still see the expression on the girl's face across the aisle from me in social studies in 10th grade. Because when they made the announcement over the intercom, this girl, Judy Cullum, looked over me, this heavyset black girl. She looked over and she had this big smile on her face. Because it sounded like somebody who's, usually the people that made the announcements were always screwing around in school,
Yeah.
And it was a whole big heavy deal, but I'm glad you finally got the guy. So the actual killer just called in?
Well, no. The author of a book called The Pegasus Directive. This guy was a Air Force intelligence guy who, he thinks he knows. He thinks he knows.
Well,
But,
I guess there was no real big hurry in getting the book out, right?
yeah. Well, and I said to him, it's probably a better idea to wait till October to come out with the book because the 60th anniversary is coming up, and it would seem like that would be the best marketing.
I got a problem with that.
What?
I got a problem with when horrible things happen and it's a year later or 10 years later, to call it an anniversary has always bothered me. It's not it's the 10th anniversary of 9/11. It's not an anniversary. It's the marking of 10 years, but Jesus Christ, what are we going to do? Get out hats and horns and cakes?
Well, the meaning of anniversary is just a year later. It's not necessarily a celebration, is it?
Yeah, but it's become a whole connotation. Our 10th anniversary. Me and my ex-wife just celebrated our wooden anniversary. I wanted her to blow me, and she wouldn't.
Oh,
So,
you know what?
So you're telling me that I could even admit to the JFK killing because there's nobody listening to you today. I'm here to plug my gig. I got a gig on Staten Island at a new club. It's supposed to be really great. Called Max's Esca. I'm plugging it. Max's Esca on Staten Island on Richmond Road this Friday, June 9th at 9 p.m.
Right.
And they kicked you off of YouTube.
They kicked me off of YouTube, but we are on Live 365, and you know what? Live 365 is kicking ass as far as numbers go. So I wouldn't go as far as to say nobody is listening. People are listening. Well, not as many people are watching, but you know what? The visual audience was never huge anyway. It's always the audio.
All right, if you're listening, prove it to me. Send me an email, jokeland@aol.com, jokeland@aol.com. Tell me that I did not waste my time on Baldy's show, and
yes.
I will send you some jokes, and we'll have a few laughs.
Do that, and here it is. You got jokeland.com. You have the TikTok thing, tiktok.com/@Jackie Martling, and then you have the Cameo stuff, and the gig is on Staten Island. Max's SES-Ka. I don't know what's that about.
Somebody told me what it meant, and of course I forgot. I think it means coming home or something like that.
Oh,
but put my email address up there if it's too late to do that.
I could do it. You know what? We'll get to it. I'll put it in one because I want to play a piece by Lori S. Strikingly hilarious, and just for you to give her some feedback on her. She's a contributor to the show now. She's got a piece called Weirdful Wednesdays. I'm going to play that because she's new to comedy and she's trying out some bits. I just want to get your perspective on it. And not to be deep.
I don't know anything. And when are you coming on our show?
I can't be on your show. Zin told me I'm banned from the neighborhood. I can't come.
You are coming on our show. I don't care if we have to tie him up. You're coming on. You'll be a great guest. We've been having so much fun. We had Tommy Chong on the other day. He was just so great.
That was.
Did you know he's 85?
Yeah, I'm good friends with Tommy. That's how you got him. I basically gave Mike his contact when Mike gave me your contact back a couple of years ago, and so basically, I haven't talked to Tommy in about 6 months, but I want to get him and Cheech on together because they don't do. The only time they do appearances together is at their weed conventions, like they go to these warehouses.
Right. Did Did you know that Cheech and Chong were on together on the Channel 9 show, the Stern Show, Channel 9
Oh yeah,
show?
yeah.
Do you remember that? It was one of the classic episodes. It was the Christmas episode of 1990, and Howard was Mary on a donkey, and Cheech and Chong were Joseph, if you can wrap your head around that. And in the manger, we had our producer buried in straw except for his head, and he was wearing his big thick eyeglasses. And then we had the body of the baby doll, and he's there's a doll's baby with his head with a big joint in his mouth. And the animals in the manger, we had a sheep and a donkey and an Italian organ grinder with a monkey. I swear to God, I'm sure it's on YouTube. I got to go look for it.
The Channel 9 show, was that only in New York or was that syndicated?
At the time, it was called a superstation, which meant it was on where it was on. You know, I think it was on Atlanta and Denver. I mean, it was on a lot of places, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't across the board. You know, it was a whole strange setup. You know, it was originally Channel 9, Secaucus, and it became a superstation. But I don't know whether that lasted a year, 5. I don't know. I know it was at least 2 years because we were on for 2 years.
Right. That was on at the same time that the VHS Butt Bongo Fiesta came out, because I remember I ordered that dopey VHS.
Butt Bongo Fiesta, I think, came the following year after we were off at Channel 9.
Oh, maybe they were running repeats of it though, because I remember maybe we just taped it. I don't know. My memory's so foggy; it could be anything. But yeah. So what? I got a question for you on that regard. Was Stern ever a toker?
He said he smoked pot in high school. In fact, there was a scene in Private Parts where he was hiding in his room rolling a joint or hiding his pot or something, and they wanted to use a Jimi Hendrix song for that section of the movie, and the Hendrix estate would not let us use a Hendrix song because they didn't want Jimmy associated with drugs. And that is the absolute true story. I mean, the guy died throwing up full of heroin, and you know, it would have given his name a bad connotation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I ever heard anything funnier than that in my life. And I know it casts no aspersions to him, but Jesus Christmas, you know.
Right. Well, I'm not sure. I think they were probably trying to get away from the connotation rather than worried about establishing a new connotation.
Right.
But wow, no, it's because you know, I don't listen to Stern, and I haven't listened to Stern, but you know, sometimes on YouTube his clips come on before mine, and he sounds like a guy who desperately needs to get stoned. I don't know. I don't want to bash the guy, and I know you have your
in
history
18
with
years. In 18 years on that show, we never, me and him, or me, him and Fred, or me, him and Gary and Fred, we never sat down and had a drink, had a beer, anything like that. I mean, we shared lots of meals and all that. And like the day I left the show, he started drinking wine. No, because I'm going to sit and have a drink with you, Matt, and we're going to have a few beers, and we're going to get loose. And I'm going to say, Matt, you know, why don't you pay us a little better? You know,
Right.
I'm not saying that's going to come up, but, you know, it certainly takes down a lot of walls. That's the whole idea of getting stoned, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But he definitely seems like a guy, because the thing that got me thinking that was a clip with Artie, when Artie kind of exposed himself as still being on heroin, and then Stern was trying to make him feel comfortable about that moment, and it just seemed like this guy.
What did
really,
he say? Like, yeah, I know how you feel. I took an aspirin last week.
No, he started to try to say, I know you're embarrassed. Let me tell you something that happened with me. And he starts talking about a piss in his pants, and his girlfriend, wife, whatever she was at the time, alerting him to the fact that you got a piss stain on your pants. And it's like, really? You're trying to make a guy who just exposed to his whole family and everybody who's listening that he's still on heroin.
All right. You know. The good news, I got a text from Artie about a week ago saying, responding to a text I had sent him months ago, just like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I've been laying low, just trying to get it together. It's nice to hear from you. So he's up and running, and knock on wood, I hope he's doing great.
Trying to
Which is
get
really
it
good.
together. I thought he had it together. I mean,
Not trying to get it together. Keep it together. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
trying to stay, you know. So meanwhile, there's a countdown. July 18th is the release date of my documentary.
July 18th. Well,
So I don't know exactly how we're promoting it or what we're doing yet. I think we're going to have a lot of screenings, but there's nothing really doing. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to be at the Paramount in Manhattan. You know, it's like all of a sudden it's just going to be available to stream. But that's a big deal because a lot of people are waiting on it. So I'm very excited about that.
that's a Tuesday. It's a weird, you know. And did they give you a time?
I think it's been so long coming, but I think release dates are always Tuesdays when it comes to streaming. I think somebody told me that. Listen, I don't know any answers. All I know is it's been a long haul, and finally, the thing, you know, I'm so sick of after 10 years of people saying, "Where's the documentary?" Finally, when they say, "Where's the documentary?" I'll be able to say, "Oh, you can get it on the Three Stooges channel." On, you know what I mean? Like, if I'll finally be able to have an answer,
Right.
which is very exciting.
That's you know what, it seems to ring true because last week Keith Lowell Jensen had his streaming show debut on a Tuesday. That's where I was going with this. So his was because the time zone stuff is always with these live streams and stuff. Time zones is a thing, and he's on the West Coast, so it was 5 p.m. there, 8 p.m. Eastern time. But 5 p.m. on the East, I can't imagine anybody like sitting down at a computer to be entertained at 5 p.m. That's
No, they gotta be listening. Well, listen, this has got nothing to do with live. All it's going to do is be available to be bought. So it's going to have nothing to do with live. We're actually going to try a live show, Stand Up Memories. We're going to do a live show on I think July 19th with a little audience in there. I think I got to sneak you in. We're starting our 4th season, which means nothing because who knows where they start, where they stop. I
Right.
know nothing. But
No, that would be
fun,
good to
you know.
come in a disguise. I'll get like.
You know what you should do? You should get glasses and a big nose and a mustache.
I'll think about it. I'll see where I can find one.
So I thought of something the other day. Speaking of releases and all this stuff, every time Howard had a new product to promote, everybody I know would be like, "Oh crap, we got to sit through weeks and weeks of Howard going on and on about the new video or the new pay-per-view or the new book," because he would just beat it to death. I can still hear it. 1-800-52-STERN, 1-800-52-STERN, and he just beat it up and beat it up. And Frank Zappa was booked to come on the show, and a couple days before, I shouldn't be laughing, a couple days before, and he was a huge fan. He was a huge fan of Howard's, and everybody knew it, or at least they knew it. And a couple days before he's supposed to come on, he died. But his wife came on anyway. And when she sat down, I wrote this note, and I thought, I usually never hesitate, but I thought, no, yet. And I finally wrote the note, and I put it up. And Howard, the first thing he said to Zappa's brand new widow was, "Is it true that Frank's last words were, 'Please call 1-800-52-STERN'?" And she laughed her ass off because you had to have a sense of humor to be Frank Zappa's wife, you know. But what a ballsy! Oh my God! And I give myself credit, but I give himself credit. I give him all the credit for saying it because that's. You don't know how somebody's going to take something. She could have thrown the book at him and ran out of there. You know.
I would have wimped out on that. I would have had that idea maybe, but I would have never, finished it because and I'm like that. I punk out.
You know,
that's
one of those famous notes that I really should go find and frame and sell it to somebody because that's a classic.
But what strikes me though is Zappa died of brain cancer, right? So he had to know he could have been dead, and so he's booking the appearance knowing that I could be dead at any moment.
I don't know any of the whys or wherefores, but I could see him booking the appearance even if he thought he was going to die right there on the show. I didn't know the guy. I just knew of him, and I don't think there would have been anything too
Well,
weird or uncalled for. You know.
I just want to put this out there. If you're a celebrity who is dying of anything, please come on my show and die on my show, because I could really, I could really use the ratings boost, whatever I get out of that. So if you're planning on dying soon,
Do you know the whole story of Parky Carcass?
No.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
He was a famous comedian in like in the 40s, late 40s.
Yeah, right.
And his son was Super Dave, Bob Einstein, and his other son was Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks, right?
Whose real name was Albert Einstein. And Parky Carcass they were doing a roast. You could Google this. This is amazing. At the time, Tony Martin had the #1 hit in the country. Okay, and he was on the dais. I think Milton Berle was the MC, and Parky Carcass got up and just brought down the house, just roasted the balls off of Lucy and Desi, and sat down and dropped dead face first into his soup. And people, at first, they didn't know what was going on. And then they realized, and Milton Berle was literally yelling, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And they tried to, but he was dead before his face hit the soup. And Milton Berle's freaking out. And he said, "Gee, what?" He said, Tony, sing something." And at the time, Tony Martin's hit song, I swear this is true, was "There's No Tomorrow." So he's lying there dead with his face in the soup. And Tony Martin stands up. "There's no tomorrow." You could not make that up. That's an absolute famous, died in the Wool True Friars tale.
I can't believe I never heard that story before. That's classic. That is.
Son, you got to Google it and, go on to Cliff Nestoroff. You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
Google Cliff Nestoroff and do a search on Lucy and Desi roast or Parky Carcass.
I gotta find out about that. Yeah.
Oh,
now that makes me curious if you know this story because, or even know about this. Rich Walker, Rich Walker, who is Peter Bale's partner in Stand Up Universe. Yeah. He told me a story about a guy who was a stand-up comedian on Long Island who used to come out in a doctor's outfit, like he was a surgeon, play it like he was just coming from like he was really a doctor. And that was his act was all about that, but he wasn't a doctor. He was just putting it on, wearing surgical stuff on stage. And he was at a show and a guy in the front row had a heart attack and right in front of him fell down. And people were like waiting on him. And is there a doctor in the house? And he just went like, "Not my specialty."
Oh, geez.
Do you know about that guy?
No, I can't believe I've never heard that, but that's a horrible story,
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to find out more about that because it's a good story. But Rich told me that in passing one day, and I haven't seen him since.
Do you know that you're probably not old enough, but there was this show called Ben Casey.
Ben Casey, I remember that.
Okay, and
same time as Dr. Kildare.
Yeah, and what was the guy's name? The actor that was Ben Casey.
Oh, I could see his face.
Real good looking, famous guy, and he was a hit at the Playboy Mansion, and he had to stop going to the Playboy Mansion because every 5 seconds somebody come up and say, "Hey, my shoulder hurts when I do this," and he's like, "I'm not a fucking doctor. I play a doctor on television, you morons." And he'd be inundated with people's, I think my golf swing is thrown off my,
Vince Edwards.
Vince Edwards.
Yeah.
The poor guy,
Wow.
He was so good at his job that it destroyed him,
Yeah, and they have a picture of him. I can't show. Damn it, because I'm on a different computer here. But they have a picture of him as Ben Casey, and then later in the 70s, he looked like Fat Elvis. What a metamorphosis! All these guys.
You know what I got? I got a picture, and I got to find it and send it to you. I was in Las Vegas, driving along either in a cab or coming from a gig. It was so funny. I did that. Penn and Teller had a show called Roaring Truths or some kind of show they had in Vegas 20 or 30 years ago. And they came around to pick us up in a van. And I got in the van. And Henry Gibson was in the van. Remember laughing?
Yeah.
Henry, I was like, "Henry!" I have no idea what his real name was. So I was so thrilled. I think that was, and we're driving along, and on the sidewalk, there was a couple posing with an Elvis impersonator, and the guy taking the picture was an Elvis impersonator. And I took a picture of it. I was like, if this doesn't tell the tale of what, there are so many Elvis impersonators. Excuse me, Elvis, would you catch a picture of us with Elvis? And they're right there. They say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, stand a little closer, you know. I love crap like that. I live for that.
Elvis impersonators are the origin of today's tribute bands, and I understood it in the Elvis day, but now we're seeing tribute bands to bands that are still out there performing. Like, they're not dead; they're not even done with their career yet.
You know, they'll let the body get cold. The body isn't even in the ground yet. You know,
it's not even sick yet. It's such a weird thing, but they make great money. These tribute bands now, in some cases, outperforming, I mean, dollar-wise, the actual acts, which is insane. Like, you know, especially.
Well, Billy Joel is printing money, and he always has. But it's not a tribute band, but the three original members of his band have a band called the Lords of 52nd Street, and they are so good, and the songs are so close to the originals. I think they're making pretty good money. At least they should. So Liberty DeVito and Richie Cannata, and I always get hung up on the last guy.
Yeah, I had Liberty on the show, and we talked about that, and he got pissed at me when I did a classic malaprop. I said the Lords of Flatbush. He said, "Lords of Flatbush." Yeah,
was it you? Was it? No, it wasn't you. Liberty DeVito. I had the greatest story. Stop me if this was you.
All right.
We had a Howard Stern poker party at the Garden City Hotel. Dominic Barber bought food and pot and booze, and you know, me and Howard and Fred, whoever the gang was, probably 8 of us played cards. It was so much fun. Dominic got a big suite, and we went to leave. And I saw the Billy Joel band loading it. I guess they had a couple nights they were going to play at the Nassau Coliseum. And I was like, I got to take advantage. So I ran all the way home to Bayville, loaded 2 huge garbage bags. At the time, I had joke noses. You push the nose, it told a joke, and CDs, and all kinds, because I know musicians love dirty jokes. I always knew that. And I brought back these 2 garbage bags and gave them to the girl or the boy at the desk. I said, make sure this gets into the hands of the guys from the Billy Joel band. They said, okay. A year later, 5 years later, we go to see Billy at the Nassau Coliseum, and we're in the dressing room. Billy has his own dressing room, but we're with like Russell Javers. That was the other guy.
Russell Javers.
Russell Javers and Liberty DeVito and whoever they probably, Russell might not have been there, but Liberty was still part of the band. And he says, Jackie, I really got to thank you. He said, a couple of years ago, you left all that crap for the guys. And he said, and that little box where you push the nose in, it tells a filthy joke. He says, my father was in assisted living. And the guys would all get together at a big table and sit there and have coffee or eat breakfast or eat lunch. He said, I gave that to him. He said, my father was a hero. They put that thing in the middle of the table, and they'd push it, and the jokes would play, and they'd go berserk. And by the time it got to the end and started over, they had no idea it was starting over. He said, forever, they were huge, huge fans. And I know it sounds like such a bullcrap story. I guess it wasn't you. Whoever.
No, it was me now, because Salvatore DeVito was the head of security for Broadlawn Manor, which was South Oaks assisted living program. My mom was his boss, so.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry to repeat the show. So it was.
No,
that rubber stamped the story. It was like, wow, it was really true, you know?
Yeah. No, I remember that story too, because it caused an uproar. I think Broadlawn Manor was a little bit out of control for like a whole day. My mom relayed that story to me, like they were just like,
the jokes that was so filthy. The jokes was.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So, you know, Billy Joel's, I don't know if he's leaving Long Island. This is a problem. Now,
So many times he was going to sell that place and move. And now the story is he wanted to have 12 horses on Center Island, and they were going to only let him have 6. They're mad about the helicopter pad. It's just, it's so stodgy. And, the rich get what they want. But, nobody wants him. Everybody, it's every Oyster Bay's claim to fame that he's our guy.
Right. It's like, I mean, he's like a Long Island flag, really.
Yeah, he's down in his motorcycle shop, and he's buying a Chink's hot dog, and he's just around. Somebody said he had a press conference the other day. He said, "Hey, I'm a Jew. I'm going to go to Florida." And
Exactly. I think there's a law that Jews, once they turn 70, have to go to Florida.
Right. You have to eat lunch at 4:30, dinner at 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what's amazing to me, because I saw, again, on YouTube, I hate to plug YouTube, those fucking bastards. I saw a video on him about how he got ripped off for all this money, like his ex-wife and his ex-wife's brother ripped him off for $90 million. $90 million, and he still got a house worth $50 million. That's incredible. I mean,
somehow they clawed back most of it.
Wow.
I think it's more. I think it was like her brother stole it, but I think she had to do with getting it back. Elizabeth, I think, it was such a convoluted, crazy story. You read all the time. Dean Martin's business manager stole all his money. I mean, I'm making that up. But the point is, the reason you have a business manager is so you can sing and drink and flirt with the girls. You're in show business. Somebody else is tending to the bank account. So they have full access. And then all of a sudden it's like, where'd that guy go? I mean, it's not a new story. It happens time and time again.
Right.
Because if you have to watch it, what's the sense of having them in the first,
Did you ever have a money manager?
Yes, me. I would take my money from my left pocket and put it in my right pocket. And when I was finally doing well enough that my right pocket was full, I got a bank account.
See, I have
a great accountant who Nancy brought with her. Nancy used my ex-wife Nancy used the accountant from Kingdom Sound in Syosset that decades ago was a famous Long Island studio / Coke parlor, and from there we had the greatest accountant in the world, and he's always taken really good care. But I've never had like somebody to manage them. Nancy managed the money, and she did great. I hope she didn't fill up her sock, but I don't think she did.
Speaking of Nancy, she's got a song on rotation on Mind Dog Radio called "Someday," and I heard it when she was on the show, and I liked it then. But it's grown on me. It's really fabulous, and it stands up against the greatest, female pop singers ever. I heard
it was such a double-edged sword, Matt, because I was on the show. And anybody that knows the Stern Show, the funnier I made him, the more they tore me apart to make me look worthwhile. I mean, not look worthwhile, and make me look like a dunce, because who would ever guess that I could have been helping him because I was the putz. And of course, I couldn't be married to anybody with any talent. And they took my songs and destroyed them, but they made fun of her and made it like, she hooked up with Jackie because she had no talent and she just wanted to hang on. So as opposed to being part of the Stern Show, helping her, she would have been so much better off to have nothing to do with it, because she is a great actress and a great songwriter and great singer. And it was just, to say something from that show was unfair. You could go, horse saying how unfair it was. But, they had a couple albums out, and the Scoldies, and you should hear the albums. The songs are very, very good.
No, yeah, and the one that Someday that is in rotation, I'm telling you, it's a beautiful song. Her voice is just a really, really sweet sound. And she sounds. I told her this when she was on the show. She sounds like she's 17, but I don't mean that as a insult in any way. She sounds very young and very relevant to today. But I heard her against Emmylou Harris one day, and then against Linda Ronstadt, back to back, and like it holds up really well. So
Well, that's great. Have you ever had her on this show?
yeah. I didn't talk to her at all about the Stern stuff. I thought that would probably be,
Not about that, but like, I mean, about songwriting and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
She is interesting as hell,
Yeah.
And she was the stage manager. I mean, the studio manager at Kingdom Sound, and I'm not going to go into the whole cocaine thing and name names or stuff. The first time that Phoebe Snow came on the Howard Stern show, she was sitting there, and she was so great, but she was so weird. She was all screwed up. And she's looking at me and out of a clear blue sky in the middle of the interview. She goes, I know where I know you from. Me and the Billy Joel band used to sit there waiting for the setup at Kingdom Sound Studios and listen to your albums that were full of the filthy jokes. You're the funniest fucking guy, It was almost like a paid advertisement,
I thought you were going to say, I know where I know you from. I was scoring coke at that guy's house, and you were sitting in you were waiting to be next.
I avoided that.
The reason I asked you about if you ever had a money guy, last night came into some money and I'm worried because I'm not good with money.
You came into money?
Yeah.
Well, put it in the safest possible.
That's what I don't know. What is the safest possible? Like a savings account is safe, but
no, it was U.S. Treasury bonds, but now who knows? Yeah. I'll give you the number to call my guy at Stifel, because Stifel is really, really solid. But meanwhile, who knows anything? I could wake up tomorrow and have Stifel out of business. The guy moved to Saudi Arabia with all the money.
Yeah, my wife.
Don't put it under your mattress. Call this guy. Call Jerry. I'll give.
My wife is a Bitcoin nut, and listen, but she's done well with it. She started. I gave her $1,000 like 3 years ago. It's now like $45,000. She's got in Bitcoin.
Can she put her hands on it? No.
Well, that's what I always ask her. Like, why don't you take some out? And she said it's such a process to get it out.
It's a number. It's a number on the internet or in an email. You know what? The smartest thing Howard ever did. His grandfather was totally freaking, not for Howard, his father. His grandfather was totally freaking out because he was very, very old and he was going to run out of money, and it bothered him so much. And one day, Howard's father went and said, hey, Pop, we just had a really good turn in business. I can't believe it. He said, I just put $1 million in your bank account. And he wrote it in and he showed him. And the old man lived happily ever after. All his father did was write the number in the bank account. It was all in his head. Right. He probably was never going to run out of money. I thought that was the smartest thing I ever heard.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, unless she's not holding that money, you know what I mean?
I know. I mean, this is. Listen, I can't really say what you just said, or else I will get my dick cut off while I'm sleeping.
And I don't know anything. For all I know, it's going to double tomorrow, and she's going to walk away with $100,000 cash, and
Well, it has just all disappeared. Or seemed to disappear a couple of times already, and it's like, you know what? Why don't you just take some of it out while it's big, and then reinvest it in other things or whatever? But you know
what? She has the same disease. Have her call me when we were rolling. Me and Nancy had a lot of money, and we had it in the stock market, and then AT&T split into Lucent. And just split 3 ways, and the money was doubling and tripling. Infinity went to Westinghouse, went to CBS, and it was growing and growing and growing. And my stockbroker said, Jackie, take some of it out. Take your investment out and put it in bonds, or take out the profit. But, and I'm like, what are you, crazy? This is one of those things where every penny you got is doubling. So you don't want to take any of it out. And all of a sudden, I'm not paying attention. And all of a sudden, the tech stocks crashed and the market and all of a sudden, what was millions and millions of dollars wasn't close to that. And he was like, I had Lucent. It split up, and I think I had $1,000 of Lucent. And 2 years later, it was $800,000.
Wow.
And I'm not paying attention. All of a sudden, you know, 3 months later, it was back to $20. I wasn't watching. Why didn't you tell me to take some out? I did tell you to take it. You know, you weren't listening, you know.
You were still drinking at the time, right?
And drinking and working and playing, you know, going 25 hours a day. And the money was rolling in and we were just loading it into the stock market because it was in the 90s. You were printing money. You were printing money. You know,
Yeah.
Infinity stock went 3 for 2, 2 for 1. Then Westinghouse, it doubled, and then it got back to Infinity, and then it went to CBS, and like it was crazy. It was,
Yeah,
and I had nothing to do. I was just sitting there holding on for dear life, you know.
Yeah, the tech stocks were going insane during the mid '90s, and that was when people were getting rich. You know, I had an opportunity to buy Google stock when it was a fucking dollar.
I got a friend, an old friend, who bought a ton of Amazon right off the bat, and you know, when it went up so much, people were like, "Hey, dump it, man." No, I'm not dumping. Get rid of it. I won't even ask him what it's worth now. I won't even ask him because
Wow.
I don't want to hear it. Imagine original Amazon stock.
I know. And there were always rumors that it was going to fail anyway because e-commerce was new. People didn't trust e-commerce. So there were always rumors that this is just a bubble stock. It's just going to get higher.
It was in no way a sure thing whatsoever. No way a sure thing, you know.
And this is why I asked you about money, because I've never been good with money. I've never been good with money. I am the worst. I've made a lot of money in my life, and I have nothing to show for it. So when a big check comes in, I'm like, I'm going to fucking blow that. I told my wife, she said, you know, what should we do? I was like, you know what? That much. It seems like a lot of money. I can tell you from past experience that it will be gone in 6 months, and you'll be like, what did we get out of it? We got a new bedroom and that.
My finances are bad enough that blue bloods came to shoot here, and what normally would have been a chip off the old block, you know, probably changed my lifestyle for a couple months. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And there's a beauty to that when a little bit of money makes a big difference. You know, I got Cameo.com, and I'll get like 5 of them for like $100, $150, whatever they are, and normally I'd think, what a waste of time. And now it's like, wow, we're going to dinner the next 3 nights. You know, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but not a lot.
How do people, because it's weird. I see people who are not that famous who are on Cameo who have high prices for it. And then I see people who are more famous have low prices for Cameo. How do you figure out,
I only charge $75 because, you know, somebody comes and says, Jackie, it's my father's birthday. He's been a fan since the mid 80s, and just tell him a couple jokes and wish him a happy 80th birthday. And I pick up, you know, I take out my iPad and say, hey, Charlie, happy birthday, you old fart. How you doing? This is your old friend, Jackie. Email me, jokeland@aol.com. I'll send you tons of dirty jokes. Your stupid son never said how dirty to get. You know, I hope you can still get a hard on. And, you know, I do 2 or 3 minutes and send it off, and boom, you know, I get paid. A lot of times I get like a $50 tip, or they tell their friends. What's sad is I enjoy it. I don't do that many gigs. So it's almost a gig. I'm sitting down in front of the computer and I'm telling jokes. I'm saying, look at me, I'm working.
Yeah. That's a cool thing. I enjoy that too. So the gig, by the way, cameo.com/Jackie Martling, and all the stuff will be in the description. But I know the people on the audio side, you know, it's good to say it, and I forget to say it enough.
Yeah, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. this Friday night at Max's Escott.
That's affiliated with Uncle Vinny's, right?
Yeah, Uncle Vinny's at Max's Escott on Richmond Road in Staten Island. One big show. It should be great fun. Staten Island is where the Martlings landed in 1675.
That's good that you know that. That's amazing that you know that.
Johann Martling got a 40-acre land grant from the king, who England had just taken over New Amsterdam, and he got 40 acres, and we all were so proud of it until we found out that Johann Martling was the third guy that was given the land grant because the first two groups were completely wiped out by the Indians. They were
Wow.
just trying to get people to go over and settle, you know. And I'm thinking, oh, my ancestor was friends with the king. Bullshit. The king said, all right, they're dead too. Who's next? You know.
Wait, the land he was given was in Manhattan or in Oyster Bay?
Staten Island.
Oh, Staten Island. Oh,
Staten Island.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't want to say, but come on.
You would not believe my ancestry, and you can look it up. Johann came and he had like 9 children, and one of his sons was Abraham. And Abraham had Abraham and Abraham. There were like 3 Abrahams, so it gets confusing. But one of them, Abraham Martling, wound up with a bar at the corner of Nassau and Spruce Street in Manhattan. And the back of the bar was called the Long Room. And that's where they met when they first formed Tammany Hall.
Wow.
My ancestors' bar, Martling's Tavern, was the first Tammany Hall. And then they built a place down the street and actually moved Tammany Hall to an actual hall. And you can see this on the internet. The sad part is there's a whole reason. It was a whole political thing. You know, they were drunks and crazy, you know. And when Hamilton and Burr had their duel, after Hamilton was killed by Burr, they came back to Martling's Tavern and celebrated. So
wow.
that's not my favorite part of our history.
And
then they went on to Tarrytown, and Abraham Martling was a blacksmith. I think it was his son was a blacksmith, and he had a son also named Abraham who was so skinny that he called him Bones. And the nickname for Abraham is Brom. And Washington Irving was good friends with Abraham Martling. So the character in Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Brom Bones, is based on Abraham Martling and his skinny son, Bones.
And
that's fact. That's crazy fact.
For rock and roll aficionados, Dion immortalizes in Abraham Martling and John.
That's a great idea. I know, you know, but the thing is, if you Google Brom Bones, you know, you see, it's an amalgam of Abraham Martling and his son Bones, but you know.
You got so many of these 6 degrees of separation with the Roosevelt family, with
that's great.
Sleepy Hollow.
That didn't pan out, but I'm not sure that it didn't for sure because
yeah. I get all that.
And whether or not we're related or not, my great grandfather, you know, ran Sagamore Hill for a couple of years, and all his kids were up there, and I got letters from Edith Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt. So not Eleanor, Edith and Ethel Roosevelt Derby. You know, they were very good friends with my grandmother. So, you know, there was a whole family connection, even if it wasn't by blood, you know.
And I probably drove past your house on 2nd grade trips to Sagamore Hill and 3rd grade trips without even realizing I'm going past Jackie Moore.
You, Joe, you know, we were just talking about this the other day because my great uncle Leonard W. Hall, was Eisenhower's campaign manager in 52 and 56. And Eisenhower was the first president that was elected on the strength of television advertising. Not in 52, they were still doing whistle stops on the trains, but by 1955, Eisenhower had 2 major heart attacks in 1955. He could have never gone out and campaigned. But my Uncle Len, they put ads on television, so Eisenhower won in a landslide both times. But each time he won, they would come down the route, you're talking about Route 106, to go to Sagamore Hill. And we're sitting right on our porch. I could still see Ike sitting up on the back of this Cadillac with whoever was governor at the time. And my Uncle Len in the front, and he's waving. You could have spit on him from what, you know, it was so close to my house. It was very exciting. I was the president of the United States driving past your house. You imagine you're 19, I'm 5 years old. There's the president, you know.
Yeah, I had the same thing with Nixon driving down Montauk Highway, past because I lived right around the corner from Montauk Highway.
But you actually did spit on him.
Yes, I actually did. Let's take a 1-minute break here, and this is Lori Strikingly Hilarious. Lori S. Strikingly Hilarious contribution to the show this week. It's called Weirdful Wednesday. Hey.
Hi, this is Lori S. Strikingly Hilarious with another episode of Weirdful Wednesdays, this time with a wedge of wonky. I believe in tipping, and can I just say, as a nurse of almost 40 years now, that I believe nurses should be tipped? When you're a nurse and people find out about it in public, they tell you things about their health. They tell me about their constipation. I say, that sounds hard. Sometimes patients have names that go with their ailments, like Mrs. Cutbirth. She was in for her third C-section. Dusty Rhodes, he was having an asthma attack. Once we had a patient with amnesia who didn't know who she was. We called her Jane Doe. She had a yeast infection. As well as patients having names that go with their ailments, sometimes doctors have names that go with their specialties. Like Dr. Huff and Puff, pulmonologist. Dr. Lovejoy, I bet you can guess what her specialty is. That's right, cardiology. And Dr. Fingerhut, he's a proctologist. Thanks, that's all for now. Bye.
Lori S. is strikingly hilarious.
Very cute. I thought she was going to talk about Rabbi Kachakakov. She was cute. She was great. I didn't get the yeast infection one. Doe. Jane Doe.
Right.
All right, Jackie. I apologize, Lori striking.
Well, she's been in comedy less than 6 months. She's a nurse, a grandmother, and decided she went to a comedy club one night and said, I could try this. And good for her that she's I gotta support anybody who's following their dreams and doing what they want to do.
We had a pair on the other day, and you probably know these people, Roseanne Sorrentino and her daughter. Oh, I should have looked, but she decided to do comedy, and her daughter's doing comedy, and sometimes they're on the same show. I think she was like either the original Annie on Broadway or one of maybe Annie in the touring troupe. And
wow,
she's very cute. She's like, I don't want to say her age, but she's like, she's like a high school principal now, but she was so cute and so bubbly, and her daughter, and they were just delightful, but they're not brand new, but a couple of years, which in the grand scheme of comedy is pretty brand new,
Yeah.
But it's great. So they go and they live and die, and how'd you do it tonight? Or it's a pretty interesting thing to do. I don't think I ever had breakfast with my father.
Right.
They're doing comedy together.
Yeah. It's interesting that when I was talking to Klein, he was talking about when he first started, there was no such thing as a comedy club. And I think back to that's got to be because stand-up comedy wasn't necessarily a profession. There were people who went up and told jokes, but it wasn't, I think the word stand-up has always been around, but what I heard was it came from the Catskills.
It came from the mafia.
Yeah, the stand-up. Oh, right.
He's a
Jersey Shore, and he's a stand-up guy, right?
It's so convoluted, but yeah, it was such a big deal. I had nothing to do with it, but in the early 70s, all of a sudden there was the Playboy clubs, and all of a sudden, comedians had a place they could get a gig because there were lots of Playboy clubs. Maybe that was the later 70s, but except for the Improv was there early, and Pips before that. But even Catch a Rising Star and the comic strip were later on, and even the Comedy Store out there, those weren't there forever. The Comedy Store was the Ciro's. You knew
Belzer, right?
Yeah.
When he passed, and this is what it really bothers me that the younger generation or the new current generation of comedians don't know the history of comedy. Because when he passed, I was, doing a little bit of a tribute to Richard Belzer and what he meant to, stand-up comedy in New York, especially. Nobody knew who he was. These comedians, and few of them knew who Klein was, and that is like, what the?
But that's what like by the 1960s, if it wasn't Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb, nobody knew who the famous ball players were. It's just it's a thing with time. I told you my whole story about having lunch with what's his face, Will Jordan, right? We went to lunch with Will Jordan, who was the original Ed Sullivan impersonator. Like, he did the original Ed Sullivan, and everybody after him that did an impression of Ed Sullivan was doing an impression of his impression. Because Ed Sullivan did none of the things, really big shoe. He did none of that. And I took him to lunch at the Friars Club, and me and this guy, David Friedman, and Will just started talking. And for lunch, he had 3 shrimp. He ate 2 of them. Most of them were on the front of his shirt. And he talked for an hour and a half. But it was so interesting because he was going on, and he was so brilliant because he was a technician with this. He went to the actor's studio. There was so much to this guy, but he's telling stories, and then he'd leave a story and go to another story, but somehow he'd circle back and finish it. But in his stories were all these names, and some of the names were just famous enough that you and I would recognize them because they got above the high water mark. And other ones were people you never heard of. And it was going to go on, blah, 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 Red Buttons, blah, 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 Jack Carter, blah, 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 Shelby Meyerowitz, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, the guys that you never heard of, but they were equals back when, and it's what stays with people, so great. Rodney used to say, nobody funnier than Shecky. Shecky's the funniest guy ever. But he never got that big because he didn't have an image. I got no respect. Dean Martin, he drank. Benny was cheap. Shecky, he was just fucking funny. That's all he was fucking funny. I don't know how much water, but it's kind of true. Like something to hang your hat on,
Yeah, there are so many comedians from the 80s that, the Letterman era where Letterman was having these guys on all the time that I remember. And none of, I'm not even a stand-up comedian. This is my problem. The lay people, I don't care if they don't remember these people, but if you're in the business, I think it's a sin not to know the history of the craft that you're in.
I will tell you one of the most eye-opening things, and I'm not going to say who it was because the guy's a good friend of mine and a comic. I don't want to give away. He was a comic and then wasn't a comic and then he was a comic again. But at some point, probably 10 years ago, maybe even more, we were talking and the guy was from Philadelphia. And I mentioned the Friars Club. And he said, "What's that?" And I'm like, but he's a brilliant guy. I mean, if it's not being bandied about and it's not current, there would be no reason. It's like somebody mentioned a Madonna song to me. I'm sure I'll go. I have no idea because I didn't care about, if it's something that just went past you. But I agree, if you're interested in something, I'm sure there's a lot of actors that know everything about showbiz. I'm not sure, but know everything about movies and the old stars. And I'm sure there's just as many actors that could give a flying ass about who, you know what I mean? It's who you are,
Yeah, I was doing Never Got a Dinner to somebody about a week and a half ago, and they were looking at me like I had 4 heads. And I was like, Red Buttons?
Well, that's even a little narrow cast, because I could see somebody even, comics not knowing that, but it's I was surprised you didn't know Park Your Carcass, because in my mind, especially you're a storyteller and you're going to be telling that story for the rest of your life. Once
I'm definitely going to read about that. That's a classic story, and I can't believe
just the fact that a guy named Park Your Carcass was a Greek comedian, and his sons were Albert Einstein, which is Albert Brooks, and Super Dave. Who knew they were brothers? You know what I mean? You scratch, you keep going.
I always knew they were brothers, and they grew up across from Carl Reiner, right? and
Right. So they spent all their time there.
yeah. Albert, I was just looking through all because I'm cleaning out my emails, and I have an email from Albert Brooks that I got to get back to him because I was asking him to be on the show. This is the kind of balls I have. I'm going after Albert Brooks when nobody gets Albert Brooks on these kind of shows.
You just take a shot. I sent my albums blind to Howard. I sent jokes blind to Rodney Dangerfield. I wrote a letter to Gershon Legman, the famous joke collector in France. And you got nothing to lose but the postage, and all of them opened up huge doors. I mean, my ex-girlfriend Emily Connor was involved in producing a play about Ann Richards called Ann. She was the governor of Texas, and she was larger than life, and she was great. And it was a one-woman show with what's her face. I'll think of the woman's name. She wrote it, produced it, and acted in it. And there's a famous guy who is writing the 7-volume biography of Lyndon B. Johnson, and he's one of those talking heads that you've seen the New York documentary, right? The eight. Well, his name is what's his name? Robert. Oh God, it'll come up to me. She said, I'd really love for him to see this. And, how would you go about finding him? And we tried to figure out who his publisher was, but of course they're going to guard him, We looked in the yellow pages and got his number. She called up and said, Robert, we're having the premiere of Ann. It's right here at Lincoln Center, and I think you live a couple blocks. He was thrilled. He showed up with his wife. He was absolutely tickled. And then afterwards, the woman who did the play came up to him and said, you gave me this idea 8 years ago. You can't make that shit up.
Right.
Wow. And he's sitting in the phone book,
Right.
Ed Asner, till the day he passed away, you could call up Ed Asner. He'd go to coffee with you.
Where's my royalty check? Holland Taylor is the star.
Holland Taylor, yeah.
Man, she looks like Ann Richards. Yeah.
She was so funny. My family all had politically connected jobs. My great uncle Len was Eisenhower's campaign manager. He's national chairman of the Republican Party. So everybody in the family, And there was a great line in the play. She lost the second time she ran for governor. She lost, and one of her grandchildren said, "Grandma, does this mean you're not going to have a job anymore?" She says, "No, honey. It means that none of us are going to have a job anymore." It's a classic line. Oh, God.
So it's jokeland@AOL.com, right?
Jokeland, JOKELAND @AOL.com.
All right. I will put that in the description. People write to Jackie so he doesn't feel lonely, because he's a very lonely man. Now,
I'm a very lonely man.
This sunburn thing that you sent me, Sunburn Cannabis. Are you an official spokesman for this company?
No. That you deal with potheads. I said, well, I guess I'm out of the running. They said, no, we haven't had the meeting yet. It was like 2 years ago.
Wow.
Did I even tell you I hosted the first High Times had an awards dinner. They had an awards show called the Stonies. And I hosted the first annual Stonies. And the way it worked is if there was a movie where somebody smoked a joint or even mentioned marijuana, that qualified them to be in the running. So it was amazing who was winning best movie and best album, because they had nothing to do with pot except for maybe something minuscule. So I hosted the first annual Stonies. And 4 years later, at BB King's, I hosted the second annual Stonies party.
See, now that's not an anniversary.
That tells the whole tale. It took them 4 years to get it together again.
Yeah, wow. It's not annual. God damn.
It was supposed to be, but it wasn't.
Now, what's with governors and brokers? You're kind of, that's like your home base, and you right? Brokerage?
I try and work there when I can. I just worked. Where did I work recently? I worked at the brokerage a couple of weeks ago. Me and Peter Bales.
Right.
I just love it. It's so fun. I just wrote to them and said, "Listen, I want to work McGuire's. I haven't worked this since before the pandemic. but I started that club in 1981. I started Governors. You know that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's
but I don't do 2 shows in a night, but the business is so weird. I mean, I do a show at 7:00 because that's when my people come out, and then at 8:00 at 9:00 on a Saturday night, the second show was a bringer show with comedians bringing people. This is the headline show on Saturday night. It's got nothing to do with the club. It's just they want to get asses in the seats. People just aren't going out that much.
I'm wondering because it's sick. That's why I brought this up because the comedy club thing has been cyclical. It booms and then it wanes and it booms, it wanes, and it's because lately I'm getting emails where they're giving away Friday and Saturday night free admission. It's like, what's going on?
They want people in there to eat and drink, but the problem is that I don't have any proof, but I don't think they're paying the comics hardly anything, and the people are going, and so many people, they go in, they see a couple people get up and tell jokes, and that's a comedy show,
Right?
Which is, I mean, back when I was running it, I mean, it was a full scale production, and you had to be what we thought was good, but for a lot of people, it's just a night out, and then they get like a headliner that people really want to see, and I'm sure that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Because it strikes me as weird because you were one of the first guys, not one of the first guys, but you were an early adopter of getting merchandise, even though you probably didn't call it merchandise, albums and things like that to sell, but nobody actually took advantage of that at like comedy clubs. They didn't set up a table of a merch table and all that stuff. Today, that's where the majority of your money comes from. I mean, you get paid for the gig, but a big part of it is having that merch table. Where
I started doing comedy. In my official start date is January 1979, and I had worked at a production studio, a music production studio. And so I learned how to make an album. So I made my first album. I recorded it on cassette and transferred it to quarter inch and cut it up with the razor blade and collected money from a bunch of friends and sent the master tape and some pictures and to Nashville. And I'm telling you, when those first 1,000 albums came into Port Authority, you would have thought I'd been made Pope. And I was the only guy I'm talking about for years and years. I was the only guy because nobody knew how to make a record or how to even approach it. I just happened to know. And so here I am. And as people are leaving the club and I'm selling my album. So I got this big album. So I'm autographing it and selling for $5 a piece. And the guys are making fun of me. Look at Jackie with his stupid albums. Look at I took them with me to Florida and people leaving the comic strip. They're on vacation in Fort Lauderdale. They go to a comic strip. They're walking out with the perfect souvenir. It's the jokes the guy just told. And I'm making an extra, $75 a night. And the guys are making fun of me. And one day somebody's like, wait a minute. He's walking out with an extra $75 a night. Maybe he's not so stupid. But nobody ever caught it. And then I was doing, the cassettes and the whole thing and the Stump the Joke Man. And very few people did that. Until when CDs hit, then they were a lot easier to make and a lot easier for people to do because you still had to have some technical expertise.
Now you have to do thumb drives, but there's no place to sign on a thumb drive.
You wouldn't believe all of my crap. 6 CDs. That's almost 5 hours of solid dirty jokes, all different. 150 insults. The pot song, the beer song, all, you said thumb drive, but they're all on sale for download for $20.
Wow.
It's Olio.com, because Olio Records is the record company, OGLIO. I never promote this, Olio.com/J.
So
Which could not be easier. For $20, you can download enough jokes to get you cross country, and they're
Olio,
so politically incorrect. Holy shit.
Olio.com. Yeah, welcome to Olio Entertainment. All right, I'll put this link in the description too. I never even heard of this company. Wow.
Yeah, he's great. Carl
But
Olio his
I
name
want
was
when you said
Capriolio.
they would have thought I made Pope. I wanted to ask you what were you fucking little boys, but uh, but yeah. So the merch thing is big now, and it yeah. If they're making fun of you now everybody's doing that, and it's the only way to really supplement. It's the best way to really supplement your income because comedy has become so really competitive that you know what you're up against so many people that yeah comedy the business understands supply and demand, and if there's so many supply of comedians they're not going to pay them less, right?
You
We have
would not have believed at the height when I was really killing on the Stern Show. You would not have believed, because when they bought something from me, they didn't just get a Jackie souvenir. To them, they were getting a Howard Stern Show souvenir. I would come in with so many bags, you would not have believed it. I'd have a bag of blue extra large Stump the Joke Man shirts, large blue extra, pink, blue, bright orange, all different bags of L and XL, stacks of CDs. I had all the stuff behind me. And after the show, it was like, when you see the stock market and the guys in the old days and they're all waving their money and they're waving the people would be jammed up there and I'm selling the stuff. I would go back to my hotel room literally with my pockets packed. And there was no more fun than straightening out the 20s and the 50s. And I'd walk out of there with an extra $800, which was, it was a trick to sell, when you're just one guy collecting money and all those people gathered around. But my
wow.
God, and they all loved it. I had a show. I'll send you a picture. I had a show where everybody was allowed in free if they wore their Stump the Joke Man T-shirt.
Wow.
And I'm on the stage at Rascals, and there's like 40 people, and they're all wearing different color shirts. It was just so flattering. It was so fun,
Well, don't take this the wrong way, but I do hope you play McGuire so I can take my wife to see you. My wife doesn't know who you are, but
now how's that taken the wrong way?
Well, because she doesn't know who you are. I think
Why would she know who I am?
Because you're pretty famous. I mean, you're on the Stern Show. I mean, she's the only person I know that doesn't at least know who you are,
Well,
especially on Long Island.
You're obviously keeping it from her because you're such a shallow, jealous.
No, I bring you up all the time. Like Jackie said this and Jackie said that, and she's like, Jackie who? I was like, Jackie Martling. And she looked at, but to be fair, she didn't know who John Lennon was.
Jesus.
But no, I want to take her to see McGuire because she won't go to Brokerage. That's too far for her. But there's a new
I'm going to tell them that I have a very good reason for booking McGuire's.
Yeah, or Sticks and Stones. Sticks and Stones is in the Hamptons. We're opening. I say we're because I'm going to be part of the promotions and all that stuff. They're going to be a current sponsor and supply me with comedians on the show. Sticks and Stones Comedy Club in Southampton opening this summer.
Well, book me, will you?
I definitely will. Absolutely will. Yeah, that would be good. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about the Southampton. There used to be a club out there, right?
There was a club in Montauk in the winter. The Montauk Comedy Club. We had so much fun. It was so far, and we drank so much. I have no idea why we're still alive. You try and find a girl to go home with, just so you wouldn't have the death-defying drive home.
Really? Yeah. Montauk is known as a drinking village with a fishing problem.
Yeah, exactly. Shag Wong, I think, is still there, right?
Yeah. But yeah, those skinny roads coming out of there, one lane roads coming out of there, you would not want to be even the least buzzed trying to drive those roads in the middle of the night. No lights on them. It's still the same. I'm just looking over Oglio, and I'm impressed with the amount of really good artists they have in here in And I can't believe I've never heard of this company before.
Oh, Carl is a great guy. You know, he had a lot of George. What's his name? The Spanish guy, George
Lopez?
Lopez, and he actually took Brian Wilson around for a year when the last thing he released, whatever it is. Carl has done tons of stuff.
Wow.
And he called me up and said, "I'm such a big fan of the Stern Show. I know you have 2 CDs out. I would like to release your next CD on my label and release your 2 previous CDs on my label." And so he produced my album Hot Dogs and Donuts. And me and Nancy had worked so hard for so long, but we did everything. We did everything. And one day, I remember where I was standing. We got something in the mail and opened it up, and it was a poster for Hot Dogs and Donuts that somebody else had done. And we were like, wow, could you imagine what it'd be like to do this with help?
Right.
It was like almost a foreign substance. Like, Jackie's new CD, Hot Dogs. Whoa, man. It was like we died and went to heaven,
Yeah. I have to say goodbye to Governors. Governors on YouTube. So bye, Governors, but fuck YouTube. And
now that's going to keep you off there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the people on YouTube can't get in the chat room on Governor's YouTube. Can't be in our chat room, and I don't want to take traffic away from them because that's their incentive for having me on there is to get some traffic for them. But they can't communicate back and forth to the guests, which is I got to figure out a way that they can do that.
Now, when you're on that, is Tony sitting there monitoring this?
Yeah.
What, is that bad?
Well, sometimes it could be. It depends on what the subject matter is and where I go with it. And when I'm sure he just got upset about me asking what's with Governors doing the free admission now. Like what? But I want to know what this
it's a
weekend.
Logical question. People might say, "Wow, if it's free, does that mean it stinks?" And that's not what it means.
Right.
Anytime you mention anything, you're only helping. You're not hurting. The old adage, which is itself redundant, the adage, there's no such thing as bad advertising. No such thing as bad press. It couldn't be more true.
Yeah. This weekend at Brokerage, Brian Downey Jr., which I talked about. I talked about the crazy people always having a middle name. Lee Harvey Oswald.
I don't think you got the right name.
Brian Downey
Jr. Somebody Downey Jr. Kevin Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, it could be Kevin. Wait, maybe I thought it was Brian. Maybe yeah, you're right. But the thing is, if I was talking about the crazy people with the middle names. If your name is Downey, you have to have a junior on it. You got Morton Downey Jr., Robert Downey Jr., Kevin, or I thought it was Brian. Kevin Downey Jr. this weekend. I mean, what's with that? If you're a Downey,
well, Robert Downey, the original Robert Downey, was a very, very famous guy.
Right. Yeah.
He did the movie Putney Swope, and he was
so was Morton Downey. The original Morton Downey was
he was like a crooner,
opera
right?
He was an opera singer. Yeah. And Morton Downey Jr. was going to be a singer too. He was he had a hit in the 50s, like one hit in the 50s or something. Was going to be a singer, and then found himself as the big mouth asshole.
Well, when he tried the story I heard was when he tried to sing, that big pile of teeth would come flying out of his mouth, so he couldn't sing.
I don't know about that. In the 50s?
I don't know. He came to see me at Governor's, and he had such a good time. Talk about merchandise. He came up and handed me 2 $100 bills, and he said, "Give me one of everything." I said, "Wow. I don't want your money." He said, "Take my fucking money. I had a great time." So we had fun. Me and him had fun.
He was an interesting guy because he grew up on Martha's Vineyard, friends with the Kennedy family. He was good friends with Teddy Kennedy, and then he became this right-wing kind of guy, very conservative voice, but I think he was acting. I think he was still a registered Democrat and still friends with the Kennedys the whole time he was doing that big mouth stuff.
All he was doing was trying to, hey, I'm over here. That's all he was doing.
Right.
You know.
And do you remember the thing that broke him was the faking an attack on himself in a bathroom, doing a Tawana Brawley, writing stuff on his.
You can't, if you try and tell somebody nowadays stories like that, they look at each other like you're making it up because so much crap happened.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. All the craziness, Speaking of craziness, guess who I'm having lunch with?
Oh.
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh, I was going to ask you about him before we wrap it up. This is a good place to go now, because I didn't believe he had a chance when he first announced that he was interested in running for president. I thought,
of course, I'm not having lunch with that fucking idiot.
Oh,
of course not.
Okay, well,
he's got 20% of the vote. What have people lost their fucking mind?
I think he has a chance now.
He's a QAnon.
I know that. I call him the Alex Jones Kennedy.
His father dug himself out of his grave and asked somebody to shoot him again. That's how embarrassed Bobby Kennedy is by it.
I agree. Now, but this when I first heard he was running, I call him Robert Q. Kennedy Jr. because I think he is QAnon, and he hangs out with Alex Jones, and but the Republicans are flocking to him. The Republicans who are sick of Trump are flocking to him, and I've seen a lot of Democrats who were anti-vax Democrats flocking to him because of that. I think he's got a fucking chance.
For whatever it's worth, that Kennedy name, it's like Pope. It just doesn't wear off. The whole thing, this anti-vax, the fucking vaccination saved millions and millions and millions of people. How these people can be so fucking ignorant and believe all the lies that, and now they just passed a law last week that you can lie on Google. You could say that the election was stolen. You could say whatever you want. They just said, all right, you know what? Have fun.
But not on YouTube, because this is what got me banned from YouTube. This woman, Patricia Corey, in her book, Hacking the God Code, she claimed on my show that the vaccine included a chip that would invade your DNA and turn you into a robot, turn all of us into robots. And I was like,
what is wrong with people?
Fucking no idea. I mean, well, I kind of alluded to it this morning before you were on with the Kennedy guy, that the Kennedy assassination broke people in a way. That was the root of all conspiracy theories, because we felt like the government lied to us on that, and then that gave birth to like moon landing conspiracies and
if they lied about that, they'll lie about anything type thing,
So, but the Kennedy thing, I do think he's got a chance, and that really. But the thing that really gets me, his father and his uncle must be saying, "Are you fucking stupid? Don't you know there's a bullet waiting for you just because somebody might want to get famous or be part?
Like people looking at their watch saying, you know what, we're overdue for a Kennedy assassination."
Right around November of this year would be. No, I'm not calling for that. Please, Secret Service,
but I know what you're saying. Like
somebody in his family's got to call him up and say, "Don't. Did you not pay attention when you were a kid?" I mean, our family is not supposed to be president again.
Jesus,
they don't want us.
I get so scared. I am so scared for everything.
But so before we go, are you really having lunch with anybody today, or you just?
No, I'm going to see my dermatologist, and I'm going tonight to have a lamb shank. Do you ever go to a Greek restaurant and have lamb shank?
No,
It's got a very fancy name, but it is so unbelievable. I'm drooling as I'm sitting here saying.
Nah, I don't think so. I'm not good. See, I'm not good with I stick to the food I know, and
but it's not weird. It's just it's a little bit marinated, but it's lamb. Do you like lamb? Oh, it's so good.
Do you eat venison, deer?
Nah, it's too. It runs around in my stomach. I don't. No venison. Yeah. There's a place called. It had dog in it. What was it? Maybe I told you about it already. It's a place in the city. They have kangaroo.
Yeah.
Kangaroo.
Ooh.
Kangaroo, buffalo, venison, rattlesnake, stuff you've never heard of, and they have all these things on the menu, and it was just so great. I mean,
I think I tried to book a gig there once when you were on, and you told me about that place, and I looked them up, and they had live entertainment there. I reached out to try and book a gig. I'll have to look into that. But buffalo, I could see it's kind of like cow.
but it's a little gamey, But
Yeah.
I got rabbits. I got 3 rabbits. It's so funny. My cat passed away like a year ago, and we got 3 huge rabbits running around. They never got that big when Jake was around.
Right.
He'd bring in the tiny little rabbits with their heads chewed off, saying like, here's our contribution for today.
I was a rabbit guy when I was a magician, and now I didn't use them. I didn't do the rabbit out of the hat stuff, but I just had rabbits as pets. But getting attached to them, they die, so they don't last long. Rabbits.
I was going to ask because these ones running around are huge, and I was like, I didn't know they lasted more than like a year or 6 months.
Oh no, like 7 years is like an old rabbit. It's like a 99-year-old rabbit.
Oh, so these guys might be around a while.
Yeah. I mean, if they're only a year old, they probably still have five decent years left in them.
I hope they don't eat my crop. I'll kill those little fuckers.
Oh yeah, no, but you'll know if they do because they'll be stoned.
Yeah,
I'll
be out there with a blunderbuss like Elmer Fudd. Remember
yeah, they do like pot. I can tell you that. Not that I never had growing pot, but I had rabbits get into my pot bag and eat an ounce of weed, and they were fucked up for about more than a week. And
What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?
Yeah. You got them in the house or outdoors?
No, but they're outdoors, but they disappear for a day and then they show up and then you look and there's 1 and then there's 3 and they're hopping around. They have a good old time,
Yeah, I like it.
It's nice. You come out from swimming and the rabbits in the yard. It's rustic. I feel like Huckleberry Finn,
Yeah. All right. Well, before July 18th, come back and let's promote this documentary.
I will make a point of it. Please email me, jokeland@aol.com.
It's on the screen right now, jokeland@aol.com. And you people on the radio, send Jackie an email so he knows that you're listening and paying attention.
I did get a couple of emails from some women, but they refused to tell me if they were young or old or cute. They just said they thought I was funny. So I said, you know what? We'll just leave it right there.
Yeah, that's enough for me.
And tell Marjorie Morningstar or whatever her name was that she was cute, that she was funny.
Yeah. All right. Lori S. Strikingly hilarious. Now I've been counseling her about this name. I think the name, her show business name is Lori S. Strikingly Hilarious. It's like that's too big for a marquee, man.
Tell her Lori Stryker.
Yeah,
that's
Lori
pretty good. Lori Stryker. Where'd that come from? Well, I think I'm strikingly hilarious.
All right.
She could even say that in her act.
Right.
And clear it all up. You don't want the name that you can't fit on a fucking,
I like that because in the 80s, I played one gig with a band called Five Guys Named Mo, and it was a trio. And I was like, why are you guys Five Guys Named Mo? He said, because everybody always asks about it. It's a good conversation starter. Why are you guys five? And so I named my band CA3, the Carlos Allende Trio, when we were a 4-piece, just so people could say, well, what's with? And I just said, well, none of us were good at math.
Yeah. Les Paul had his guitar player, his rhythm player, and his stand-up bass player, and he called themselves the Les Paul Trio. And people were like, what the fuck are you doing? And he said, well, Nikki is a girl, so we're going to call us the Les Pauls Trio. That was his big joke. He's so fucking funny. Oh, God.
Well, thanks for getting up on a Wednesday, and you're probably up anyway, but it's not like an early day for you. The people on
nowadays, I pop out of bed and go swimming even before my cup of tea in the morning.
Dylan Brody? Have you ever met Dylan Brody?
Why would I know that name?
He's a comedian, writer, and he was on the show last week, and I had him on for like 3 hours. It was really cool. But he was, because we were talking about Carl Reiner before, and he's telling me about how, his interactions with Carl Reiner and being part of that whole circle. I mean, I think it's relatively famous, but not like you, not everybody knows him, but
I would love to talk to him and hear from him. I love all the old shit, and I love the old stories. And the Friars Club is now completely defunct, which is so sad.
yeah.
And but
I love hearing stories about Carl Reiner and that group, and which is why
did you listen to Mel Brooks' book?
No.
You got it. My friend Eddie did it with Mel, and Mel reads it himself. So just get the audio version of the new Mel Brooks autobiography.
Yeah,
it's great fun.
I definitely want to check that out. And all those, that group. The what was the movie? They came out, My Favorite Year or something like that. That was based on that whole.
My Favorite Year, and then Laughter on the 23rd Floor. But My Favorite Year, that was our Channel 9 show. That kid, that writer, that was our lives. I love that fucking movie. Everything going haywire, just fucking wonderful.
Yeah, I love that stuff too. Well, thanks. I'm going to say goodbye here and get off the air because I got shit to do.
Oh, really? Please.
Well,
all I got to say to that is me neither.
Well, I have to find an accountant. I have to find out how I'm not going to blow money that I.
Do you want me to send you my stockbroker's name?
Yeah, please. I'm going to look around. I'm going to investigate every possible thing I can do to try to avoid blowing money and wasting it. It's not for me, mind you. I just want to make sure that when I'm dead in 5 years, that my wife has still some of the money, not that she won't be destitute.
Well, let her out of the house so she'll know who somebody is.
Yeah. Yesterday I played at her. She's a nurse, and she works in assisted living out here. And I played in the nursing home that's affiliated with her that she used to be the boss of. And people love her over there. And you know what? She's a very very special person, but not to me.
I know.
She can be an angel. Then I said this to Lori S. when she was on the show because she's a nurse. I said, nurses can be very loving and caring, but not to the people that in their family.
Everybody in my life. You got the greatest mother. She's so smart. She's so friendly. She's so fun. And I always said, fucking take her.
Yes.
She's all yours.
So yeah, especially if you're young, relatively young, and have money. As soon as I die, come in and take care of my wife for me. Thank you. Anyway,
but everything is perspective. When I was first starting comedy, and I had this very young girlfriend who was very pretty, and she was really, she was very cool. It turned out she was cheating on me with the fucking Cleveland Browns. I mean, who knew? Because I'm running around doing comedy. But we get together for a dinner party with our friends. And I'd be a couple of beers. I'm the life of a party, And meanwhile, I'm trying to be a comic, and I'm beating my head against the wall. And that's the side that she sees, So we'd be at a party, and somebody'd come up and say, "Oh, that must be so fun living with Jackie." And she'd go, "Take him for a week."
I think I said that to Nancy. I said that to Nancy. I was like, how could it? I mean, everybody loves Jackie, but 24/7. She said, well, he's not on like that 24/7. Because that would drive me like the laugh alone 24/7 would.
No, like I walk in the door, it's like leave your laugh on a hook.
Yeah. All right. Well, be well and come back before the documentary comes out, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck this weekend.
And call Jerry. He'll give you, if nothing else, he'll give you some advice.
Yeah, and May Pang is coming on the show in September, so thank you for that. That will be interesting.
That's great. Give her my best.
Okay. See you later. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Jackie, what? Jackie, well, I'm lost. Lee Harvey. Jackie Harvey Oswald. Jackie Harvey Martling, or Abraham Martling and John, or one of those serial killers. Great stuff there. I always love talking to Jackie, and I know you all love when he's on the show. That is the show for today. I do have things to do. I really have business stuff to take care of. So write to him so he doesn't feel I don't know, neglected, ignored, or feels like he's wasting his time being on this program. So let him know that you've been listening and enjoy the stuff, and ask him to tell you a couple of jokes. Anyway, that's the show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow, Rob White, who is a local comedian who is everywhere on Long Island right now performing comedy. He's also a great tattoo artist. He will be with me. Wow, I'm having senior moments here, folks. Danny Lake, who was supposed to also be on the show in the second hour tomorrow, has got some issues health-wise and has to bow out. He won't be with me tomorrow. So we'll have a hour show, or a little more than an hour show with Rob White tomorrow. And that's the show for today. And then Stephen Marcus Relaford, who was supposed to be on Friday, will not be with us on Friday because morning is difficult for him. And even though he booked it, he wanted me to tape the show, and I'm like, you don't understand. It's live, it's like a radio show. You wouldn't if you're going to be on Howard Stern. And listen, I know I'm not Howard Stern. You wouldn't ask Howard Stern to do his show in the afternoon just for you, especially if you're not a star. But I'm getting a lot of this from comedians. Like, can we do it at 5:00 in the afternoon? No, the show is live 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. daily. If you can't do that, don't book. But don't expect me to do my show at a different time. That's crazy. You wouldn't do that to anybody else. Maybe it's because they think of this as a podcast, but it's not a podcast. It's a radio show first, a live stream show first, and a podcast show as a secondary distribution of the content. Think of it that way. Or don't even think of it as a podcast at all. It's not a podcast. It's a radio show. It's on streaming radio and streaming video. Anyway, that's the show for today. I said that already, didn't I? So the only thing left to say really is turn on your radio. Bye for now.
I
to me, listen to me now. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me now. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me now.